can I cash in my check?
You think you can just walk in here? You're poor and dirty. Get out!
Excuse me, sir. I'd like to check my account balance, please. A young black boy stood quietly at the counter. He was only 10 years old. His shoes were worn out, the soles cracked and the laces frayed. His jacket looked like it came from a thrift store, too big for his small body, hanging off his shoulders. He stood straight anyway, trying his best to look confident. The bank manager stopped what he was doing. Slowly, he looked the boy up and down. Then he burst out laughing. "Check your account," he said loudly. His voice echoed across the shiny marble lobby. "This is First National Heritage Bank, not a welfare office for street kids." Bradley Whitmore stepped closer. The smell of his expensive cologne filled the air, clashing with the cruelty on his face. He pointed at the boy. "Look at those shoes. Look at that skin." He shook his head in fake disbelief. Another black kid looking for a handout. "You people are all the same." The words cut deep. "Get out before I call security," Bradley snapped. "We serve real customers here." The security guard moved closer, his hand resting on his baton. From behind, a wealthy customer shouted, "Throw him out already. He's stinking up the place." Laughter spread through the lobby. Loud, cruel, and shared. Everyone laughed together at one small boy. No one spoke up. No one defended him. Not a single person. But none of them could have imagined what would happen next. Within the hour, Bradley Whitmore himself would be begging. Not for money, but for mercy. Wesley Brooks didn't run. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He stood his ground, just like Grandma Eleanor had taught him. "Sir, I have an account here," Wesley said. His voice shook, but it did not break. "My grandmother opened it for me. She passed away 2 months ago. She left me this." He held up a brown envelope. Inside were the bank documents, the card, and a letter his grandma had written before she died. Bradley rolled his eyes dramatically. "Your grandmother?" he repeated, turning to the watching customers like he was performing on a stage. "Let me guess. She also left you a mansion in the Hamptons and a private jet." More laughter. The rich customers enjoyed every second of it. Chelsea Morrison, the senior teller, leaned forward. Her lip curled in disgust. "Sir, should I call the police? This kid is obviously trying to scam us." Bradley raised a hand. "Not yet. Let's see what kind of con he's pulling first." He grabbed the envelope from Wesley's hands and pulled out the papers roughly. His eyes scanned them without interest. Then he saw the bank card. It was black. Premium tier. Platinum reserve. The kind of card only very rich clients had. For one brief second, something crossed Bradley's face. Confusion, maybe even doubt. But prejudice is powerful. It can blind you to the truth even when it's right in front of you. Bradley shook his head. "Where did you steal this?" he said sharply. He held the card up high so everyone could see it. "A black kid from the projects with a platinum reserve card? You really expect me to believe that?" Wesley's hands trembled. "I didn't steal anything. It's mine. My grandma." "Your grandma means nothing," Bradley cut in. He tossed the card onto the counter. It slid across the cold marble. "I've worked in banking for 15 years, kid. I know fraud when I see it." Then he pointed to the far corner of the lobby. Near the bathroom entrance, near the janitor's closet. The worst seats in the entire building. "Sit over there. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'm calling headquarters to verify this so-called account." Wesley walked to the corner slowly. His head was down. His shoulders slumped. Each step felt heavier than the last. He sat on the cold metal chair alone. The marble floors, shiny brass rails, and expensive suits around him made his worn-out shoes feel even smaller. He pulled out Grandma Eleanor's letter. Her handwriting was shaky, but full of love. "My brave Wesley. Never let anyone make you feel small. You are worth more than they will ever know. He read the words once. Then again. Then a third time, trying to believe them. His phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Lawrence. Stuck in a meeting. Be there in 20 minutes. You're doing great, champ. Wesley almost smiled. He had no idea how much those 20 minutes were about to change everything. Tier 1. The waiting game. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 25. Wesley stayed in the corner. Invisible. Forgotten. Erased. The bank buzzed with life around him. Customers walked in and out. Tellers smiled and handled transactions. Everything went on like normal. Everything, except for Wesley. He watched as Bradley Whitmore helped a white man in a golf polo open a brand new account. The man had arrived 15 minutes after Wesley. He was helped right away. No questions. No suspicion. No doubt. Just smiles, handshakes, and a warm welcome to First National Heritage Bank. Wesley watched as Chelsea Morrison walked out of the break room carrying a cup of coffee. She handed it to Bradley Whitmore with a smile. They stood together near the water cooler, laughing softly. Every few seconds, their eyes drifted toward Wesley's corner. Then they laughed again. Wesley couldn't hear what they were saying. He didn't need to. Their faces said enough. A wealthy woman in a tight designer dress stepped up to the counter and deposited a check. The numbers looked big, thousands of dollars. The whole thing took less than 3 minutes. She smiled, took her receipt, and walked away without once looking at the black boy sitting alone near the janitor's closet. Another customer, an older woman named Diane Campbell, finished her transaction next. She was different. As she turned to leave, she glanced at Wesley. Her face tightened with something that looked like discomfort. Maybe guilt. For a brief moment, Wesley thought she might come over. Ask if he was okay. Say something kind. Do something human. But she didn't. She pulled her designer purse closer to her body and walked toward the exit. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor. Click. 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 Each sound felt like a small betrayal. Wesley took out Grandma Eleanor's letter again. The paper was soft now from being folded and unfolded so many times. The edges were starting to fray, just like his nerves. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and loved more than you know. Grandma used to read that to him every night before bed. She said a famous author wrote it. Winnie the Pooh, she told him once with a wink. Even bears know wisdom. Wesley didn't remember the author's name. He just remembered her voice. Warm like honey. Safe like a fortress. Gone like smoke. His phone buzzed again. Uncle Lawrence. Meeting running long. 15 more minutes. Stay strong, champ. Wesley typed back with shaking fingers. Okay. He didn't mention the laughter. The insults. The way Bradley looked at him like trash that needed to be thrown out. He didn't want to worry his uncle. 30 minutes now. Still waiting. Still invisible. Near the entrance stood a security guard named Jerome Davis. He was black like Wesley. Mid-50s. Tired eyes that had seen too much. Gray hair creeping into his close-cropped cut. Jerome had seen everything. The insults. The laughter. The way Bradley humiliated the boy in front of everyone. He wanted to speak up. God, he really did. But he had a mortgage. 2 kids in college. 11 years at this bank, working toward a pension. Silence meant a paycheck. A paycheck meant survival. Survival meant his family didn't end up on the street. Jerome looked away. He hated himself for it. But he looked away anyway. Tier 2. The interrogation. Finally, after 32 long minutes, Bradley called Wesley over. Not to the main counter where real customers were helped, but to a small desk in the back corner. Away from the comfortable chairs. Away from the free coffee. Visible to everyone, yet completely isolated, like an animal on display. Wesley sat in the hard plastic chair. He placed his grandmother's documents neatly on the desk. Bradley didn't touch them. He didn't even look at them. "Let's try this again," Bradley said. His voice was cold and flat, the voice of a man performing for security cameras. "You claim you have an account at this bank. You claim your grandmother left you money. But you have no proper ID, no guardian present, no proof of address. And frankly, kid, you don't look like someone who belongs in an institution like this." Wesley's throat tightened. "I have my school ID," he said quietly. "And my grandma's letter. And the bank card has my name on it." Bradley picked up the school ID using 2 fingers, like it was dirty. "Lincoln Elementary School. 5th grade," he read aloud. Then he dropped it back onto the desk. It slid toward Wesley, nearly falling off the edge. "This proves absolutely nothing," Bradley said flatly. "Any kid can get a school ID. That doesn't mean you have money in our bank." He tapped the desk with 1 finger. "But this card," he continued, lifting it slightly. "Where are your parents?" The question hit Wesley like a punch to the chest. His father had left before he was born. His mother had died when he was 3. A car accident. He didn't even remember her face. Only pictures, frozen smiles in old photo frames. I live with my uncle," Wesley said. His voice came out small, hurt, and shaky. "And where is this mysterious uncle?" Bradley asked. "He's coming," Wesley replied quickly. "He's in a meeting. An important meeting." Bradley leaned back in his expensive leather chair. He crossed his arms over his silk tie and smiled slowly. "A meeting," he said. "Of course. How convenient." His smirk grew wider, uglier. "Let me guess," Bradley continued. "He's the CEO of some Fortune 500 company. That's why a 10-year-old black kid in ragged shoes has a platinum reserve card. Because his uncle is so rich and so important." Before Wesley could say anything, Chelsea stepped up beside Bradley. She leaned down and whispered into his ear. They both looked at Wesley. Chelsea's smirk matched Bradley's perfectly. "I don't know what kind of scam you and your so-called uncle are running," Bradley said loudly now, making sure other customers could hear. "But it won't work here. I'm freezing this account pending a full investigation." Wesley's eyes widened in fear. "You can't do that," he said. "That's my grandma's money. She saved her whole life." "Your grandma?" Bradley interrupted. His voice dripped with sarcasm, every word sharp. "Right. The teacher who supposedly left you a fortune." He leaned forward. "Tell me something, kid. What did she really do? Rob a bank herself? Deal drugs? What?" The words hung in the air like poison. Something cracked inside Wesley's chest, right where he kept Grandma Eleanor's memory safe. Tier 3. Public abuse of power. Bradley stood up. He straightened his tie, smoothed his jacket, and raised his voice so the entire lobby could hear. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced smoothly, like a trained actor. "I apologize for this disruption. This is what we deal with every single day. People who don't belong in places like this trying to take what isn't theirs." 6 customers watched. Some nodded, their ugly thoughts confirmed. Others looked uncomfortable, but stayed silent. No one spoke up. Diane Campbell had come back. She had reached her car in the parking lot but couldn't turn the key. Couldn't drive away. Something, guilt, conscience, basic humanity, pulled her back inside. Now she stood near the entrance, hands shaking, watching everything happen. "I don't know where you stole that card," Bradley continued, pointing at Wesley like a lawyer accusing a criminal. "I don't know what lies you've been told. But you are not getting a single penny from this bank. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever." Wesley's vision blurred with tears. He tried to hold them back. "Boys don't cry," a voice in his head whispered. Then Grandma's voice answered softly, Boys feel, Wesley. Feeling is strength. My grandma worked 40 years, Wesley said. His voice cracked, but he forced the words out. She was a teacher at Lincoln Elementary. She saved everything for me. She promised. Spare me the sob story, Bradley snapped. His words felt like a slap. I've heard them all before. Every con artist has a dead grandmother and a tragic tale. He turned sharply toward the entrance. Security, he said. Escort this kid out of my bank. Now. Jerome didn't move. His feet felt stuck to the marble floor. Did you hear me? Bradley barked. I said now. Jerome started walking toward Wesley. Slowly. Each step felt like another piece of his self-respect dying. 11 years at this bank. 11 years of silence. 11 years of watching Bradley humiliate people who didn't fit his idea of a real customer. Immigrants struggling with English. Women in second-hand clothes. Elderly people confused by technology. Anyone who looked poor. Sounded different. Seemed weak. Jerome had never spoken up. Not once. Today was no different. He stopped in front of Wesley and held out his hand. He couldn't meet the boy's eyes. Wesley stood up on his own. He didn't need help. He picked up Grandma Eleanor's letter from the desk and pressed it against his chest like a shield. Then he walked toward the door with as much dignity as a 10-year-old could carry. Bradley's voice followed him like a curse. Next time you want to beg for money, try a homeless shelter or a street corner. That's more your natural environment. Someone in the lobby laughed. A real laugh. Loud. Cruel. Wesley reached the exit just as his phone started ringing. The screen lit up. Uncle Lawrence calling. He tried to answer, but his hands were shaking too badly. The phone slipped from his fingers and crashed onto the marble floor. The screen cracked. Jerome picked it up. For one brief moment their eyes met. In that moment, Wesley saw something he didn't expect. Shame. Deep, heavy, crushing shame. Jerome was drowning in it. But shame wasn't enough. Words were needed. Action was needed. Jerome handed the phone back. He said nothing. And he let the boy walk out alone. Wesley pushed through the automatic doors. They closed behind him with a soft whoosh. Inside the bank, Bradley straightened his tie again and smiled at Chelsea. And that, he said proudly, is how you handle it. Give these people an inch, they'll take everything. Chelsea nodded, but her smile had faded. Something uncomfortable twisted in her stomach. Bradley's phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject: Urgent Q4 investor visit. Immediate preparation required. He glanced at it and deleted it without reading. Too busy. Too important. Too confident in his power. He should have read that email. He really should have. Outside, the cold November wind cut through Wesley's thin jacket. He sat on a stone bench in the parking lot, pulled his knees to his chest, and made himself as small as possible. The brown envelope with Grandma Eleanor's documents sat beside Wesley on the bench. His cracked phone rested in his lap. The letter was clenched tightly in his fist, getting more wrinkled every second. He looked down at his shoes. The same shoes Bradley had mocked. The same shoes everyone had laughed at. Grandma Eleanor had bought them from a thrift store last spring. $2. Wesley had been embarrassed back then. Other kids at school wore Nikes and Jordans. Bright, clean shoes that people noticed. Shoes don't make the man, baby, Grandma had said, kneeling down to tie his laces. Character does. And you have more character in your little finger than most people have in their whole bodies. She wore her own shoes until they fell apart. When they tore, she taped them. When the tape failed, she glued them. When they couldn't be fixed anymore, she still wore them. Now Wesley understood why. Every dollar she didn't spend on herself was a dollar she saved for him. Tears dropped onto the cracked phone screen. He didn't wipe them away. He tried calling Uncle Lawrence. Straight to voicemail. He sent a text, his fingers shaking as he typed through tears. "Uncle Lawrence, they kicked me out. They said I stole Grandma's card. They called me a thief." Then he waited. 1 minute. 3 minutes. 5 minutes. No reply. The meeting must still be going. Uncle Lawrence always put his phone on silent during important meetings. He called it professional courtesy. Wesley had no one else to call. No one to help him. No one coming to save him. A woman walked past. Business suit. Designer bag. Perfect makeup. She saw the crying black boy on the bench. The same boy who had just been thrown out of the bank. She had seen everything through the glass. She kept walking. A man jogged by with a golden retriever. The dog slowed down, curious, wanting to sniff Wesley. The man yanked the leash and hurried away. Cars came and went. People entered the bank. People left the bank. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked if he was okay. Wesley was invisible. Just like inside. Just like always. He unfolded Grandma Eleanor's letter one more time. The paper was damp now, spotted with tears. "My brave Wesley. The world will sometimes be cruel. People will judge you by your shoes, your clothes, the color of your skin. They will try to make you feel worthless. But you are not worthless. You are my greatest treasure. Everything I have saved, everything I have worked for, it's all yours now. Use it to fly high. Use it to prove them all wrong. And remember, dignity is not given. It is carried. Carry yours with pride, baby. Always. All my love, forever and ever. Grandma Eleanor." She had promised him. They had been sitting in her tiny kitchen, eating chocolate chip pancakes. "One day," she had said softly, "you'll walk into that bank and they'll treat you like a king, Wesley. They'll call you sir. They'll shake your hand. You'll see." Today they had called him a beggar, a thief, a con artist. Today they had thrown him out like garbage. Wherever Grandma Eleanor was, she must be heartbroken. Inside the bank, silence ruled. Diane Campbell stood near the entrance, frozen. She had come back because guilt wouldn't let her leave. She watched through the glass as Wesley cried alone on the bench. She watched people walk past him without stopping. She should go outside. Sit beside him. Say something kind. But what could she say? She had stood right there earlier. She had heard the insults, the racism, the cruelty, and she had done nothing. What right did she have to comfort him now? Jerome Davis stood at his post by the door. His eyes kept drifting to the parking lot, to the small figure on the bench. His chest felt tight. His hands clenched again and again. 11 years ago, Jerome had been that boy. Different bank. Different city. Same humiliation. A white manager refusing to cash his paycheck. Need extra verification for people like you. A security guard following him around a store. Just doing my job, sir. A realtor suddenly saying an apartment was no longer available after seeing his face. 1,000 cuts over a lifetime. And now Jerome was the one in uniform. The one following orders. The one helping cruelty survive. His younger self would be disgusted. He took a step toward the door. Maybe he could. Stop daydreaming. Bradley's voice cracked through the air like a whip. There's a delivery at the back entrance. Handle it. Jerome hesitated. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then he turned and walked toward the back. The moment passed. Outside, Wesley was still alone. But not for much longer. A black Mercedes S-Class turned smoothly into the parking lot. Sleek. Silent. Expensive. It stopped near the entrance. The door opened. And everything began to change. Lawrence Brooks stepped out. 6'2". Silver gray suit that cost more than Bradley Whitmore's monthly salary. Silver at his temples. Calm authority in the way he moved. an authority that made people straighten without realizing why. He saw Wesley instantly. His nephew. His late sister's only child. The last living piece of his mother, Eleanor. A boy sitting on a cold bench, crying, clutching a crumpled letter, completely alone. Lawrence's jaw tightened. A muscle twitched beneath his eye, the only sign of the fury rising inside him. He walked over and knelt so he was eye level with Wesley. "Hey, champ," he said gently. "I'm here now." Wesley looked up. His face completely fell apart. "Uncle Lawrence." He threw himself into his uncle's arms and sobbed. Tears and snot soaked into the expensive suit. Lawrence didn't care. He didn't even notice. He held Wesley tightly. He didn't rush him. He didn't ask questions. He just stayed there until the shaking stopped. "Tell me what happened," Lawrence said. Wesley told him everything. Every insult. Every laugh. Every moment of humiliation. Lawrence listened without interrupting. His face stayed calm, but his eyes grew darker with each word. When Wesley finished, Lawrence stood slowly. "You did nothing wrong," he said. His voice was solid, unmovable. "Nothing. Do you understand me? None of this is your fault." Then his tone hardened. "But they were wrong. And they're about to learn exactly how wrong." He took Wesley's hand and started walking toward the bank. Wesley pulled back. "I don't want to go back in there," he whispered. "Please, Uncle Lawrence. Please." Lawrence stopped and knelt again. "I know, champ. I know it's scary. But sometimes we have to face the people who hurt us, not to fight them, not to yell, but to show them they couldn't break us." He squeezed Wesley's hand. "That they have no power over us." Wesley looked at the glass doors. The marble lobby beyond. The place where he had been humiliated. He thought of Grandma Eleanor. Dignity is not given. It is carried. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." A second car pulled into the lot. A luxury SUV with tinted windows. A woman stepped out. Tall. Elegant. Professional. Patricia Edwards. Regional Director of First National Heritage Bank. She had been on her way to the quarterly investor visit, the same one Bradley kept ignoring, when her phone rang. Lawrence Brooks, CEO of Meridian Capital Holdings, the bank's largest investor. He explained everything in exactly 60 seconds. Calm. Clear. Devastating. Patricia changed course immediately. She walked up now and nodded respectfully. "Mr. Brooks, I am deeply sorry. This is completely unacceptable." Lawrence's expression didn't soften. "We'll discuss that inside. My nephew deserves an apology. And I want to see exactly who we're dealing with." Patricia nodded. "Of course. Whatever you need." They walked toward the entrance together. Lawrence. Patricia. Wesley. Wesley's heart pounded so loudly he could hear it. His legs felt weak, like they might give out. The last time he walked through those doors, he was thrown out like trash. Now he was walking back in with his uncle's hand wrapped warmly around his, and a regional director beside them. He didn't understand everything that was happening. But he understood this. Something had shifted. The ground beneath Wesley's feet felt different. The automatic doors slid open. The lobby went silent. Every head turned. Bradley Whitmore noticed Patricia Edwards first. The color drained from his face, turning pale as chalk. Regional Director. Unannounced visit. This was very, very bad. He rushed forward, straightening his tie, forcing his best VIP smile onto his face. "Ms. Edwards, what a wonderful surprise," he said, his voice too loud, too eager. "We weren't expecting you until—" "Plans changed," Patricia replied. Her voice was calm, cold, and sharp enough to freeze water. Then Bradley noticed the man walking beside her. Tall. Distinguished. Wearing a suit that screamed money and power. And Bradley's stomach dropped. The man was holding hands with the kid. The black kid Bradley had thrown out. The kid he had called a thief. A beggar. A con artist. The kid was back. And he was holding hands with someone who clearly mattered. "I'd like to introduce you to someone," Patricia said. Her voice carried across the silent lobby. "This is Lawrence Brooks, founder and CEO of Meridian Capital Holdings." The name hit Bradley like a punch to the chest. Meridian Capital Holdings. The bank's largest institutional investor. 34% ownership of the parent company. The man who could destroy careers with a single phone call. That man, that Lawrence Brooks, was holding hands with the boy Bradley had just humiliated. "I believe you've already met my nephew," Lawrence said quietly. He stepped aside. Wesley stood there. His eyes were still red from crying. His grandmother's letter was still pressed to his chest. But now he stood straight. Chin up. Shoulders back. Bradley's face flickered through emotions like a broken screen. Confusion. Recognition. Horror. Pure terror. I didn't," Bradley stammered. "If I had known who he was." "That," Lawrence said calmly, "is exactly the problem. Isn't it?" Chelsea Morrison dropped her pen. It hit the marble floor with a sharp clatter, loud as a gunshot in the silence. Jerome Davis, standing near the back, felt something shift inside his chest. Something that had been dead for 11 years stirred back to life. Diane Campbell, still near the entrance, pressed both hands over her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Everyone was watching. The customers who had laughed. The employees who had enabled it. The bystanders who had stayed silent. All of them were witnesses now. Lawrence released Wesley's hand. He walked toward Bradley slowly. Each step was measured. Calm. Controlled. The walk of a man who knew his power and didn't need to rush. Bradley stepped backward. His back hit the marble counter. There was nowhere to go. "Mr. Whitmore," Lawrence said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The entire lobby was holding its breath. "My nephew came here today to check his account balance," Lawrence continued. "His grandmother, my mother, left him that money as his inheritance. It is legally his. Every penny." He paused. "Can you explain why he was denied service?" Bradley's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. He looked like a fish gasping for air. "There were irregularities," Bradley said weakly. "We were just following standard protocol." "What irregularities?" Lawrence asked. His voice stayed calm. Controlled. Somehow that made it far more frightening than shouting. "The account is properly documented," Lawrence continued. "The funds were verified by your own bank. So tell me, what specific irregularity justified treating a 10-year-old child like a criminal?" Bradley swallowed. I didn't realize. If I had known who he was." "That," Lawrence said quietly, stepping closer, "is exactly the problem." Bradley tried to lean back, tried to disappear into the counter behind him. There was nowhere to go. "You didn't know who he was," Lawrence continued. "So you decided he was nobody. You saw a black child in worn-out shoes and made a judgment. Not about policies. Not about protocol." He paused. "But about who deserves to be treated like a human being." The words landed like heavy hammer blows. "My mother worked 40 years as an elementary school teacher," Lawrence said. "She rode the bus until she was 70 because she didn't want to waste money on a car. She wore the same winter coat for 15 years. She bought store-brand groceries so she could save every extra dollar." His voice never shook. "If she had walked in here today, you would have treated her the exact same way. You would have laughed at her, humiliated her, thrown her out." Bradley said nothing. There was nothing he could say. "She would have deserved better," Lawrence added. "Just like Wesley. Just like every single person who walks through those doors." Lawrence turned to Patricia. Before we discuss consequences, he said, I want Mr. Whitmore to see something. Patricia nodded. Lawrence walked toward the main counter. Wesley followed, still holding his hand. Chelsea stood frozen behind her computer, her face pale and empty. Pull up my nephew's account, Lawrence said. It wasn't a request. Chelsea looked at Patricia. Patricia nodded once. With trembling fingers, Chelsea typed. The screen loaded slowly. The entire lobby held its breath. Then the number appeared. $487,263. Almost $500,000. 40 years of a teacher's salary. Every birthday card with cash tucked inside. Every Christmas bonus. Every summer tutoring job. Every sacrifice. All saved for Wesley. Bradley stared at the screen. His face went gray. His mouth fell open. No sound came out. Complete silence. Then Lawrence spoke. He laughed at your shoes, Lawrence said softly. His voice carried to every corner of the lobby. He stopped laughing when he saw the balance. The number glowed on the screen. $487,263. Bradley couldn't look away. His mind couldn't understand what his eyes were seeing. $500,000, belonging to the child he had just called a beggar. That, Lawrence said, pointing at the screen, is the money my mother saved over 40 years. She rode buses in the rain so Wesley could go to college one day. She wore second-hand clothes so Wesley could have a future. She ate rice and beans so Wesley would never go hungry. He paused, letting every word sink in. And you almost took that away from him because of his shoes. Bradley finally found his voice. It came out broken and desperate. I didn't know. If I had known there was that much money. And that, Lawrence cut in sharply, is the real problem. His voice turned cold, sharp as steel. You would have treated him differently if you knew he had money. Your respect has a price tag. But human dignity does not. Lawrence looked at the screen one last time. Then down at Wesley. My mother always said this, he continued. Anyone who treats a waiter differently than a CEO has no character at all. He turned back to Bradley. Today, you showed your character, Mr. Whitmore. And everyone here saw it. Bradley had nothing to say. Because Lawrence was right. And everyone knew it. Patricia Edwards stepped forward. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like a countdown. Bradley, she said calmly, my office. Now. Bradley didn't move. He couldn't. His legs felt like stone. Bradley. He blinked. Looked at Patricia. Then at Lawrence. Then at Wesley, the boy he had mocked, insulted, humiliated, and thrown out. The boy whose grandmother had trusted this bank with everything she had ever earned. 15 years of his career flashed through his mind. The promotions. The corner office. The company car. All of it crumbling. I can explain, he whispered. You'll have that chance, Patricia replied, her voice cold and firm. In private. Now. She turned and walked toward the back offices. Bradley followed, his steps unsteady. Lawrence watched them go. Then he knelt beside Wesley. You okay, champ? Wesley nodded slowly. His eyes were still fixed on the screen. Grandma saved all that for me, he whispered. She started the account the day you were born, Lawrence said gently. She added to it every month. Never missed once, even when times were hard. He smiled sadly. But she never bought herself nice things. Her apartment was small because she was giving everything to you. His voice softened. That's what love looks like sometimes, Wesley. Sacrifice. Putting someone else's future ahead of your own comfort. Wesley thought of all the times Grandma Eleanor had said no to herself. The winter coat with the broken zipper. The old television that took 5 minutes to warm up. The reading glasses held together with tape. She could have had more. Instead, she gave it all to him. I'm going to make her proud, Wesley whispered. I promise. Lawrence squeezed his shoulder. You already have, champ. You already have. Inside Bradley's office, the air felt colder. Patricia sat in Bradley's chair, behind his desk. A deliberate choice. Lawrence stood by the window, arms crossed, silent and watchful. Bradley sat in the visitor's chair. The cheap one. The chair where customers sat when they came to beg for loans. I've already reviewed the security footage, Patricia said. She turned her laptop around and pressed play. Bradley watched himself on the screen, laughing at Wesley, calling him a beggar, threatening to call security, announcing to the entire lobby that black kids didn't belong in real banks. His own voice, his own words, his cruelty recorded forever. You violated 3 company policies, Patricia said, her tone clinical and precise. Discrimination based on race and appearance, denial of service without legitimate cause, and falsification of official records. Bradley's head snapped up. Falsification. Patricia tapped on her laptop and turned the screen toward him. You filed an incident report 23 minutes ago, she said. It claims that Wesley Brooks was aggressive, threatening, and refused to provide proper identification. She looked directly at Bradley. The security footage shows a polite 10-year-old boy asking to check his account balance. It shows you laughing at him, insulting his race, and ordering him removed from the building. Bradley swallowed hard. I was protecting the bank's interests. No, Patricia replied evenly. You were protecting your prejudices. She closed the laptop. There is a very big difference. Patricia stood up, walked around the desk, and stopped in front of Bradley. She stood over him like a judge about to pass sentence. Effective immediately, you are suspended without pay. Your Q4 bonus, all $35,000, is forfeited. A full HR investigation will begin tomorrow morning. She paused. If it confirms discriminatory intent, and based on this footage, it will, you will be terminated for cause. Bradley's face collapsed, like wet paper. 15 years, he whispered. I gave this bank 15 years. And in 15 years, Patricia said firmly, you should have learned that every customer deserves basic respect. She opened the office door. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your access credentials have already been revoked. Bradley stood up. His legs barely held him. He looked at Lawrence one last time, searching for mercy. He found none. If he wasn't your nephew, Bradley began. You're right, Lawrence interrupted quietly. His words were calm, but devastating. If he wasn't my nephew, he would have walked out with nothing. He might have filed a complaint that would be ignored. He might have called a lawyer who would tell him it wasn't worth pursuing. Lawrence met Bradley's eyes. That is exactly the problem, Mr. Whitmore. He should not need me to be treated like a human being. No one should. Bradley had no answer. He walked out of his own office, past his own employees, through his own lobby. For the last time. Chelsea Morrison was next. She sat in the same meeting room where she had whispered about Wesley, smirked at his humiliation, and supported Bradley's cruelty. Now she was alone in the chair. You didn't start this, Patricia said. But you participated in it. You encouraged it. And you failed to intervene while a child was being abused. Chelsea's mascara streamed down her face in dark lines. I knew it was wrong, she sobbed. I didn't want to cause trouble. I didn't want to be the one who. Silence is not neutral, Ms. Morrison, Patricia said calmly. Silence is a choice. And it has consequences. She explained the discipline clearly. A formal reprimand. Mandatory training. A permanent note in her file. Zero tolerance for any future incidents. Chelsea nodded through her tears. She accepted everything. She had learned something that day. The lesson had cost her dignity, but she still had her job. Jerome Davis stood near the entrance after his meeting with Lawrence. It wasn't a formal meeting. Just two men talking. You picked up his phone when he dropped it, Lawrence said. You handed it back to him. Jerome nodded slowly. It wasn't enough. No, Lawrence agreed. It wasn't. But he didn't soften the truth. It was something. A small kindness when he had none. Jerome lowered his head. I should have done more. I should have spoken up. You should have, Lawrence said. Then he looked at him steadily. The question is, what will you do next time? Jerome thought about his mortgage, his kids, his pension. Then he thought about Wesley, 10 years old, crying alone on a bench. Next time, Jerome said quietly, I speak up. No matter what. Lawrence nodded and extended his hand. Jerome shook it. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't absolution. It was a promise, to himself, to Wesley, and to everyone he might be able to protect in the future. A promise he meant to keep. Diane Campbell had stayed through everything. The meetings. The consequences. The reckoning. She was still there when Wesley and Lawrence walked toward the exit. Wait, she said. Her voice broke. Please. They stopped. Diane walked toward them slowly. Her eyes were red. Her hands trembled. I'm so sorry, she said. The words poured out. I saw everything. I should have said something. I should have defended you. But I just stood there like a coward. Wesley looked at her. This woman who had watched him suffer in silence. He thought of Grandma Eleanor. Forgiveness isn't about them, baby. It's about setting yourself free. You came back, Wesley said softly. That matters. Diane's tears fell faster. I'm filing a complaint. A formal one. As a witness. Everything I saw. Everything they said. It will all go on record. Lawrence nodded. That takes courage. It takes less courage than your nephew showed today, Diane replied. She looked at Wesley. He stood there and took everything. He didn't run. He didn't scream. He just endured with dignity. She shook her head. I don't know if I could have done that. Wesley didn't know what to say. So he said the only thing that felt true. Thank you for coming back. Diane nodded, wiped her eyes, and walked toward customer service to file her complaint. One small act of courage. It was a start. The news spread through the bank like wildfire. By closing time everyone knew. Bradley Whitmore, 15-year veteran, branch manager, terminated for cause. The official reason was simple and clean. Violation of company policies regarding customer service and professional conduct. But the real reason traveled through whispers, texts, and hushed conversations. He mocked a black kid. Called him a beggar. Threw him out of the bank. Turns out the kid's uncle owns a third of the bank. By the next morning, it was regional news. By the following week, it was national. The details were kept private to protect Wesley. No names. No footage of his face. No photos. But the headline was enough. Bank manager fired for discriminating against a child. Major investor involved. Full corporate accountability. People talked about it. Argued about it. Shared their own stories. It became a moment. Bradley Whitmore's termination was finalized within 72 hours. No severance. No recommendation letter. No pension benefits beyond what the law required. 15 years of work. Gone in 15 minutes. He applied to other banks. No one called back. Word had spread. Eventually, he took a job managing a check-cashing store in a strip mall 3 towns away. Every day, he helped the same kinds of people he used to mock. Some people called it karma. Others called it justice. Bradley called it nothing. He didn't have the words. Chelsea Morrison kept her job. Barely. She completed every required training. Showed up early. Stayed late. Never smirked at another customer again. 6 months later, she transferred to a different branch. She said she needed a fresh start. 6 months after that, she quit banking altogether. She went back to school. She became a social worker. Now she spent her days helping families navigate systems designed to shut them out. The same system she had once enforced. The irony wasn't lost on her. Neither was the lesson. 3 weeks after the incident, Jerome Davis faced his first real test. A young Hispanic woman entered the bank. She looked nervous, unsure. Her English wasn't perfect, and she struggled to explain what she needed. A new teller, young, impatient, was losing patience fast. His sighs grew louder. His eye rolls more obvious. Jerome walked over. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. The teller started to explain. Jerome cut him off. "This woman is a customer," he said firmly. "She deserves patience and respect. Help her properly, or I will find someone who can." The teller froze. His eyes widened. I'm sorry," he said quickly. He helped the woman with care. Real care. Jerome returned to his post. His heart was racing. His hands were shaking. But he had spoken up. For the first time in 11 years he had spoken up. And it felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. Patricia Edwards didn't stop with Bradley. Within 3 months, she rolled out major changes across the entire region. Mandatory bias training, every employee, every quarter, no exceptions. New service rules, every customer helped within 15 minutes, no matter how they looked. Mystery shoppers to test compliance. An anonymous hotline for staff and customers. Zero tolerance for discrimination. And at every bank entrance, a small plaque was mounted. Every customer deserves respect. First National Heritage Bank. It wasn't revolutionary. It wouldn't fix centuries of injustice overnight. But it was a start. A real one. Patricia made one more change. This one personal. She called Lawrence Brooks directly. "I want to do more than punish bad behavior," she said. "I want to honor your mother's legacy." What would that look like? Lawrence thought about it. He talked with Wesley. He thought about Eleanor. About her sacrifices. About her love. A week later they announced it. The Eleanor Brooks Scholarship. Funded by the bank. Managed by a community foundation. Every year 2 full scholarships. Tuition. Books. Living expenses. Awarded to students from underserved communities pursuing degrees in education. Teachers helping future teachers. Eleanor Brooks's legacy multiplied. The first recipients would be announced the following fall. The selection committee would include educators, community leaders, and one special advisor. Wesley Brooks. 10 years old. Already changing the world. When Lawrence told Wesley about the scholarship, the boy was quiet for a long time. "They named it after Grandma?" he asked. "They did," Lawrence said. "So her dream keeps living. So she keeps helping kids, even now." Wesley looked at the framed photo on his dresser. Grandma Eleanor smiling. Wearing her old coat. Her old shoes. She would have cried, Wesley said softly. Happy tears. "Yes," Lawrence replied, his voice thick. "She would have." Wesley opened his closet and pulled out his worn-out sneakers, the ones Bradley had laughed at. He placed them on the shelf beside her photo. He would never throw them away. Never. The video surfaced 3 weeks later. Not from the bank's cameras. Those were sealed. From a customer's phone. The young professional who had been filming that day had meant to post it for laughs. Drama at the bank. Easy engagement. Quick views. But then he watched what happened after. He watched Lawrence arrive. Watched Bradley crumble. Watched justice unfold in real time. And something unexpected hit him. Shame. He had stood there filming. Laughing. entertained by a child's humiliation. What kind of person did that make him? He deleted the original video. But the guilt stayed. It lingered. It festered. It wouldn't let him sleep. 3 weeks later, the man posted something very different. This time it was his own face. His own voice. His own confession. "I was there that day," he said into the camera. "I watched a bank manager humiliate a 10-year-old black boy because he wore old shoes. I watched it happen. I laughed. I filmed it like it was entertainment." He swallowed hard. "I was wrong. I was part of the problem. That kid showed more courage than anyone in that lobby. Especially me." He leaned closer to the camera. "So if you ever see something like this happening, don't watch. Don't film. Don't laugh. Speak up. Because silence makes you complicit. I learned that the hard way." He paused. "Don't be like me." The video went viral. 3 million views in 5 days. The comments poured in. Thousands of people shared their own stories. Their own shame. Their own promises to do better. A national conversation started. About bias, about assumptions, about the snap judgments people make based on how someone looks. Wesley never saw the video. Lawrence made sure of that. The boy had been through enough. But the message still spread. One small act of honesty. One confession. Millions of conversations. Change doesn't come from one big moment. It comes from countless small ones. This was one of them. 8 years later, Wesley Brooks walked across a sun-drenched campus. Georgetown University. First day of freshman orientation. He was 18 now. Tall. Confident. A long way from the frightened 10-year-old standing in a marble bank lobby. But not completely different. He still carried his grandmother's letter. It was laminated now, protected, tucked safely inside his wallet, close to his heart. And on the shelf in his dorm room sat a pair of worn-out sneakers. Cracked soles. Frayed laces. Faded with time. His roommate noticed them immediately. "Bro," he said, pointing. "Are those your shoes? They're completely destroyed." Wesley smiled. "They're the most valuable thing I own." "Valuable?" His roommate laughed lightly. "They look like they belong in a trash can." Wesley picked them up gently. He ran his thumb over the cracked leather. "My grandma bought these for me when I was 10, he said. $2 from a thrift store. She apologized because she couldn't afford better." He placed them back on the shelf. "She saved almost $500,000 for my education. Wore the same coat for 15 years. Took the bus in the rain. Ate cheap food so I could have a future." He looked at his roommate. "These shoes remind me that love isn't about what you have. It's about what you give." His roommate was quiet for a long moment. "That's actually really beautiful, man." "Yeah," Wesley said softly. He touched the shoes one more time. She really was. Lawrence Brooks kept running Meridian Capital. But he changed too. He started a mentorship program for young people from underserved communities. Paid internships. Real jobs. Real career paths. Not charity. Investment. Talent is distributed equally, he told his board. Opportunity isn't. We can change that. The Eleanor Brooks Memorial Scholarship flourished. 14 recipients in 8 years. Teachers. Counselors. Principals. All carrying Eleanor's legacy forward. All teaching the next generation. Jerome Davis retired from the bank 3 years after the incident. But he didn't disappear. He became a school resource officer. A different kind of security. Protecting kids instead of removing them. Every time he stood up for a student, he thought of Wesley. Every time he spoke against injustice, he remembered the promise he had made. He never stayed silent again. Not once. Diane Campbell joined the bank's community advisory board. The woman who once watched in silence became a voice for change. She volunteered at schools, spoke to students about courage, about speaking up, about the cost of silence. I was a bystander once, she told them. I chose to stay quiet. It's a choice I regret every day. Don't make my mistake. Chelsea Morrison found her redemption in social work. She spent her days helping families like the ones she once dismissed. She never forgot Wesley. Never forgot how close she came to being exactly like Bradley. She wasn't perfect, but she was different. Truly different. Bradley Whitmore? No one really knew what happened to him. Some said he moved to another state and changed his name. Some said he never recovered and drank himself into obscurity. Some said he finally understood what he had done and spent his days volunteering at shelters, trying to make amends. No one knew for sure. Maybe that was its own kind of justice. That evening, Wesley stood by the window in his dorm room as the sun set over Georgetown. Tomorrow classes would begin. His future would start. He pulled out his grandmother's letter and read it again. The words he knew by heart. My brave Wesley. Never let anyone make you feel small. You are worth more than they will ever know. Dignity is not given. It is carried. Carry yours with pride. He had carried it through the worst day of his life. Through growing up. Through every step that led him here. His phone buzzed. Uncle Lawrence. First day tomorrow. How are you feeling, champ? Nervous. Excited. Ready. Your grandma would be so proud of you. I know, Wesley typed back. He looked at the worn-out shoes on the shelf. I think about her every day. Lawrence. She's with you, Wesley. Always will be. They talked for a few more minutes. Then Wesley hung up. He had orientation to attend. A future to build. A legacy to honor. He grabbed his backpack. Brand new, expensive, a gift from Uncle Lawrence. But on his feet were the old sneakers. The ones he brought to campus. The ones he wore on special occasions. And today felt like a special occasion. Wesley Brooks stepped out of his dorm room and walked into his future. He carried his dignity with him, just like Grandma Eleanor had taught him. She always said respect is not a reward for success. It is not something you earn because you have money, wear expensive clothes, or know powerful people. Respect is the starting point. It is the basic level of humanity. The minimum we owe one another simply for being human. Wesley Brooks did not need a powerful uncle to deserve basic decency. No one does. But that day in the bank taught him something he would never forget. Some people measure your worth by your shoes. Some measure it by your wallet. And a few rare people measure it by your character. Be one of the rare ones. And if you ever find yourself standing in a lobby, a classroom, a store, or a street, watching someone being humiliated, ask yourself an honest question. Who do you want to be? The one who laughed? The one who filmed? The one who stayed silent? Or the one who spoke up? The choice is yours. It is always yours. Dignity is not given. It is carried. Carry yours with pride. And help others carry theirs too. That is how the world changes. Not all at once, but one small act of courage at a time. And if this story reminded you of something you once witnessed, or a moment when you stayed silent, share it. Not for us. For the next Wesley who walks into a place alone, and needs someone to speak. Before you go, if this story moved you, please like this video. It helps more people see stories like this. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, or with someone who might one day need the courage to speak up. And subscribe to this channel for more powerful, real-life inspired stories that remind us what dignity, courage, and humanity truly mean. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you for choosing to be one of the rare ones. See you in the next story.